A maid fainting in my office? That's just incompetence. The firm voice echoes through the luxurious hall, making everyone freeze for a moment. The brightness of the chandeliers contrasts with the heavy silence, as frightened eyes turn to the floor, where the maid lies motionless. It was 5:30 a.m. in New York City when Ethan Blake finished his run on the state-of-the-art treadmill. Sweaty but impeccable, he dried his face with a white towel. The penthouse where he lived looked like something out of a magazine. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a privileged view of Central Park. Ethan took a deep breath, opened his cell phone, and began issuing orders before even having breakfast. "Chloe, organize the meeting with the investors. I want printed reports, error-free." The voice was cold and sharp. On the other end of the line, her assistant responded breathlessly, "Yes, sir, I'm already taking care of it." At 7 a.m., Ethan would walk down the private driveway and get into his black SUV. The driver didn't dare start a conversation, just drove in silence. The millionaire viewed the city as if it were a chessboard. To him, every person was a replaceable piece. Blake & Co. Building. Receptionists were straightening up in their chairs when they saw him enter. "Good morning, Mr. Blake," one of them ventured. Ethan didn't even respond. He hurried to the exclusive elevator, leaving the feeling in the air that any slip-up would be punished. Elsewhere in the city, in her small Queens apartment, Laura Adams' alarm clock rang at 4:45 a.m. She was already up, making weak coffee and toast for her younger siblings, Liam and Sophie. The ceiling was stained with water, the kitchen was cramped, but Laura kept everything clean. "Little sister, are you coming back early today?" Sophie asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Laura smiled, even though she was exhausted. "I'll try, my love." She straightened her worn blue uniform and tucked coins into an envelope hidden in the drawer. Rent, medicine, bus fare, every penny counted. "Liam, help your sister with her homework, okay?" he asked before leaving. "I'll leave it to you," the 10-year-old replied, trying to sound responsible. With her hair tied back in a simple bun, Laura ran down the stairs of her building so she wouldn't miss the subway. On the way, her mind raced. Morning shift at Blake & Co., then a restaurant, and evening at a hotel. 3 jobs, 1 body. In the company's mirrored building, Laura passed through the service entrance. She ran into Maria, a fellow cleaner, who commented in a low voice, "You have huge bags under your eyes, Laura. Have you rested yet?" "Rest is a luxury, Maria. I have to pay the bills." Meanwhile, upstairs, Ethan was giving instructions to his team with an impatient look. "If anything goes wrong today, I want names. Whoever messed up is out." Hours before fainting, the 2 worlds already crossed without touching. The cold rigidity of an arrogant millionaire and the silent resistance of a young woman who carried the weight of her entire family on her shoulders. The clock approaches 9. The 48th floor gleams as if the floor were a mirror. Laura finishes lining up the magazines, checks the corners of the meeting room, and takes a shallow breath. Her stomach grumbles, but she ignores it. Hurried footsteps cut through the hallway. Tense voices overlap. "Where's the investors? Coffee." Chloe, the assistant, snaps without looking at anyone. "Coming soon," Megan replies, balancing a tray. "Don't drop it for God's sake," Paula whispers nervously. Laura takes 2 steps back to see the entire table. The glow of the chandeliers dances on the varnished wood. She rests her hand on the edge to keep her balance. The air seems heavier, as if the tower were windowless. A ringing begins in her ears. She blinks, trying to steady her eyes. Everything spins a little. Is everything okay? Noah, the security guard, approaches in a low voice. Yes, I am. She forces a smile, almost ready. Chloe appears behind, unaware of Laura's trembling. "Mr. Blake's table needs to be spotless in 30 seconds. Her tone is sharp. "And put the sparkling water on the left side." He notices. Laura grabs the spray bottle, aims it at the surface. Her vision blurs. The letters on the label blur. The spray escapes crookedly, wetting the sleeve of her uniform. She tries to wipe it away, but her hand fails. She feels a hollowness rise from her stomach to her chest, a waterless dive. The ground seems to recede. "Laura!" Maria calls, worried. Just a second. Her voice is barely audible. Laura's fingers lose their grip. The cloth slips. The spray bottle falls, rolling across the floor with a dry thud. Her eyes turn to the ceiling, which is no longer a ceiling, but a distant glow. And then her body gives way. Plof. The fall is clean and cruel, followed by a chorus of gasps. "Oh my God!" Megan screams, dropping a spoon. "Laura!" Maria runs, kneels beside her, tries to lift her friend's head. "Talk to me, darling." "Oh, call someone!" Paula trembles. "Call the nurse!" The hallway freezes. Time doesn't. From the mirrored elevator, the doors open with a beep. The clock strikes 9 o'clock. Ethan Blake emerges like a bolt of lightning, wearing a tie and a cold face. He takes 2 steps, sees the circle of people, and his face hardens even further. "What's going on?" The voice cuts through the air. No one answers immediately. Noah tries to explain. "Sir, Laura, she's taken ill." Ethan scans the scene with calculating eyes, the clerk on the floor, the spray bottle rolled onto the table, a trickle of water near the leather chair. His jaw tightens. "In the middle of my floor." He gives a humorless half-laugh. "This is no place for weaklings. I want that woman out today." Silence. The echo of the sentence falls heavily on the walls. Maria widens her eyes, hugging Laura's head, as if she could hide her from the sentence. "Sir?" Noah tries again, firm but respectful. She fainted. "It's not a whim." "Not a whim. Incompetence." Ethan takes 2 steps forward, taking over the room with his shadow. "Meeting in 5 minutes. I want the hallway clear and the room spotless." "Impeccable?" Chloe repeats automatically, then realizes the harshness in her own voice. I'll call the nurse." "To call and get it sorted." Ethan adjusts his watch. "And let HR know the temporary hiring for the cleaning department ends today." Paula lowers her head. Megan bites her lip to keep from crying. Maria defies her fear and responds with the firm voice of someone who has seen a lot. "She's not temporary, she's a person." Ethan stares at her for a long second, almost surprised that anyone has a voice. "And you want to be the next problem of the day?" Maria falls silent, but her gaze remains smoldering. Noah takes off his coat and folds it under Laura's head. "Breathe, Laura, breathe," he whispers. "We're here." From the back of the room, a foreign investor peers at the scene through the half-open door, confused. Chloe closes the door with an apology and returns, torn between the 2 wars, the human one and the corporate one. "The nurse is on their way," she says softly. "Too late," Ethan grumbles. "We've wasted enough time." Lying in silence, Laura's body gives a slight spasm. Her eyelashes flutter. A thread of air enters, tearing inside and escapes in a moan. Liam," she murmurs, almost childishly. Maria leans in. "Who's Liam?" "His brother," Noah replies. "The boy always calls later." The word brother carries through the hallway, but hits glass and falls. Ethan is unfazed. He spins on his heel, ready to return to the conference room. The ward team appears with a stretcher and an oximeter. Her blood pressure has plummeted, the nurse says quickly. "Lack of rest. She's dehydrated. We need to get her to you now. Take it." Ethan is already at the door. "And clean it up afterward." The doors to the room close, muffling the sound of the gurney. Outside, everyone's breathing slowly returns. Maria holds Laura's hand until the gurney disappears into the elevator. Chloe, pale, leans against the wall. Noah clenches his fists. "Weak people," he repeats indignantly, looking at the line of light under his boss's door. "I'd like to see him with 3 shifts and 2 children to raise." Inside the meeting room, chairs scrape, folders open, and polite voices are gathered. Outside, a void remains where Laura fell. and something invisible shifts, as if a hidden wire in the tower has snapped. The impeccable hallway now looks like a stage after a scene no one wants to talk about, but no one will forget. The elevator closes with Laura's stretcher, but peace doesn't return. The 48th floor continues to vibrate with the shock, and the emptiness beneath seems to scream. Two finance employees pass by, whispering behind their folders. "He fainted distant," one of them chuckled. "Drama to avoid working. And just today, with an investor here," the other added. "What a scene." Noah listens, takes a deep breath to avoid replying. Maria fixes her eyes on them. "You don't know anything," she says, low and sharp. "Calm down, Maria," Noah says. "It's not worth it." The conference room door opens. Ethan emerges, his face grim, as if the world owes him an apology. "Security," he calls curtly. "I want the hallway clear, and if that employee comes back, remove her from the floor, now." Noah swallows hard. "Sir, she needs help. I'm not asking for your opinion." Ethan points toward the elevator. "My meeting takes priority." Chloe appears with short steps, clipboard pressed to her chest. "Sir, the nurse said it was a drop in blood pressure." "What about my drop in productivity?" he counters. "Get someone who can handle the job." Muffled laughter erupts in the background. The word "weak" flies like a spark. Paula rolls her eyes but remains silent. Megan bites her lip until it almost bleeds. Maria crosses her arms, firm. "She works 3 shifts, Maria says, glaring at Ethan. "So she worked too much where she shouldn't have?" He cuts in without hesitation. "Security." As if on cue, Noah steps forward, not to attack, but to protect. And it is at that moment that the elevator opens again. Laura, pale, returns, leaning on a nurse, a glass of water in her hands, her body still trembling. "No, you don't have to take me. I'm fine," Laura whispers stubbornly. "I can finish. I swear I can." The nurse tries to restrain her. "You need to rest. Just 5 minutes," Laura begs, looking at the floor, as if asking were a crime. Ethan turns his head slowly, as if locating an uncomfortable noise. His gaze falls on Laura, and the silence grows even denser. "I told you I didn't want any trouble on my floor." His voice is like glass. "Security, escort her to the service exit." Laura's eyes widen. She takes a step forward, almost tripping. "Please," her voice falters. I need this job. I have 2 brothers. I didn't miss class. My body blacked out. But I'll be back. I'll finish everything. Please." The giggles turn into crooked smiles. 2 interns exchange knowing glances. How embarrassing. Paula clasps her hands, torn between speaking and keeping quiet. Megan, summoning courage. "Mr. Blake, maybe we can rearrange today's shift and—" "No," Ethan cuts in, not looking at her. "If I give in, everyone gives in." "She'll be fine," the nurse tries. "She just needs to hydrate and eat." "Eat outside," he says. Laura fills her chest as if searching for air at the bottom of the sea. Her eyes shine, but the tears don't fall. Not there. "I'll clean the room now, by myself. In 10 minutes, she says, with the bravery of someone who has run out of options. There won't be anything left out of place. "In 10 minutes, Ethan repeats, almost laughing. "I lose $1 million contract. You only lose a job." Maria takes a step forward. "That's cruel." Ethan turns his face to her, slowly. "That's standard." And to Noah, "Follow her." Noah hesitates, torn between order and conscience. He looks at Laura as if apologizing without words. "Come with me, Laura. Let's go downstairs and get some air." He tries to soothe. "I beg you," Laura whispers, her voice cracking. "I'll stay late. I'll double shift. I'll do anything. Don't send me away. Please, don't send me away." The please echoes like a glass breaking. Some look away, unable to bear the scene. Others watch, curious, as if it were a reality show of pain. Ethan straightens his tie, turns away. "Meeting now." The word falls like a slammed door. The hallway gives way to him, an obedient tide. Chloe tries to keep up, but looks back, split in half. "I'm so sorry," she says sincerely to Laura. "Don't be." Laura breathes stubbornly, holding the glass with both hands. "Just let me finish." "Not today," Ethan replies, without turning his head, already reaching for the doorknob. "Today, you're leaving." Maria holds Laura's hand to steady her. "We'll figure it out, you hear?" Laura agrees, but her eyes betray panic. "Please," she repeats, this time more quietly. "I have nowhere to go." "Let's go down, Laura," Noah insists gently. "I'm with you." A nervous laugh escapes from a table in the back. "Weak people," someone mimics, amused. Maria turns, ice in her eyes. "You have no idea what it's like to be strong." Laura takes one step, then another. The service elevator waits, a square of metal that smells of disinfectant. Noah holds out his arm for support. She can barely feel her legs. Before entering, she looks at the glow of the floor one last time, as if saying goodbye to something that never had a chance to be hers. The elevator was almost closed when the worn strap of Laura's bag gave way. The seam snapped with a sharp snap, scattering papers across the hallway floor like a handful of letters in the wind. Prescriptions, pharmacy receipts, a small notebook with sloppy notes, and among them a white envelope marked with a hospital postmark. "Damn," Laura whispered, trying to lower herself quickly, but her legs wouldn't obey. The envelope slid to a stop right next to Ethan Blake's polished shoes. He didn't hesitate. He bent down, picked it up with 2 fingers, and looked up with a curious, almost cold gaze. "What is this?" he asked, as if it were just another misplaced document. "No, sir, please." Laura held out her hand, pale. "It's personal." But it was too late. Ethan ripped open the envelope and pulled out the folded sheet. The silence of the floor seemed to hold its breath along with Laura. His eyes ran over the lines of the medical report. First, a neutral expression, then an arched eyebrow. Finally, the rigidity of his face broke into something rarer, surprise. He read aloud without realizing it. "Cancer treatment, patient Liam Adams, 10 years old." The entire hallway froze. Megan dropped the pen from her hand. Paula put her hand to her mouth. Maria closed her eyes, as if she wanted to hug Laura even without touching her. "Liam," Noah murmured, remembering the name she had whispered while she passed out. "He's her brother." Laura tried to retrieve the paper, but Ethan held on tightly, his gaze fixed on her. "Are you—" He paused, searching for the word. "Paying for chemotherapy for a 10-year-old. Laura took a deep breath, as if releasing a weight she'd been holding for a long time. Her voice was fragile but firm. "He's my brother. He's all I have. I work 3 jobs. Night, day, weekend, so he has a chance to live." Shock coursed through the floor like electricity. Even the malicious laughter fell silent. Chloe lowered her clipboard, embarrassed. Ethan blinked, as if trying to absorb the information. The same man who, minutes earlier, had called Laura incompetent, now held in his hands the proof of an invisible struggle. The room was utterly silent, and every eye turned to him, waiting for his reaction. Ethan began, but his voice choked. He cleared his throat, composing himself. "Why didn't anyone know about this?" Laura looked up, her eyes watering. "Because it's no one's problem. The world already demands too much of me. I just want him to live." Her words cut deeper than any rehearsed investor pitch. For the first time, Ethan's face showed not arrogance, but something no one had ever remembered seeing in him: vulnerability. At the end of the hallway, Maria murmured, as if giving voice to what everyone was feeling. "She's not weak. She's stronger than all of us here." Ethan clutched the paper between his fingers, his mind spinning. The $1 million contract waiting behind the door seemed small next to those printed lines. The plot twist was set. Laura, the invisible employee, had revealed, albeit unintentionally, a power greater than any number: the silent courage to sacrifice everything for love. And, in that moment, The one who seemed to be in command of the room was no longer Ethan Blake. It was her. The paper was still trembling in Ethan's hands when Laura, leaning on Noah to keep from falling again, took a deep breath. Her teary eyes met his. There was no arrogance, no defiance, just the courage of someone who had nothing left to hide. "I can't stop." Her voice was hoarse, almost a whisper, but the whole hallway heard it. "If my brother doesn't continue the treatment, he'll die." The silence was so thick that the distant roar of cars on the street 48 floors below could be heard. Laura closed her eyes, let a tear escape, and continued, "I work 3 shifts. I clean here in the morning, run to the restaurant in the afternoon, and stay in a hotel at night. I don't sleep more than 3 hours a day. It's not because I like it. It's because I have no choice." Maria pressed her lips together, overcome with emotion. Chloe lowered her head, unable to look at her clipboard. Megan placed her hand on her chest, as if holding her heart. Laura took a deep breath and delved deeper into the wound. "When our parents died in an accident, Liam was only 5 years old. I was still barely a child, but I promised I would take care of him and Sophie. I promised I wouldn't let them lack anything. Not food, not love, not even the chance to fight this disease." Her voice cracked, but her eyes remained steady. "I can handle it all, Mr. Blake. Exhaustion, pain, humiliation. But I can't handle losing him." Noah, nearby, swallowed hard. "She's not begging, she's begging for life," he said, staring at Ethan. The millionaire, accustomed to meetings where nothing surprised him, seemed paralyzed. His rigid face, once a fearsome sight, now showed fissures. He tried to speak, but only a single expression came out. "I didn't know." Laura gave a bitter half-smile. "Nobody knows, because nobody asks. I'm just the girl with the rag and the bucket, right? Invisible, but my family's life depends on what these hands can rub into every corner of this city." The words fell like a hammer. The entire hallway seemed smaller in the face of the enormity of the confession. Even the employees, who had previously giggled secretly, now averted their eyes, flushed with embarrassment. Maria held Laura's shoulder affectionately. "Oh, you're stronger than all of us combined." Laura wiped her face with the sleeve of her wet uniform. "Strong. I feel weak every day. But when I remember Liam's eyes telling me not to give up, I get up. I always do." Ethan stood motionless, clutching the envelope that suddenly weighed tons. For once, he didn't look like the owner of the room, but rather like a man confronted with a truth no amount of money could ignore. Laura's past, finally revealed, transformed not only her image in the eyes of everyone, but also the atmosphere on that floor. What was once just another maid now stood tall as a woman carrying the world on her shoulders to save her brother. Ethan was still clutching the envelope when he slumped his shoulders, as if the entire building had suddenly remembered he was human too. The echo of Laura's voice hung in the air. Noah and Maria expected something. Another cut, another cold order, but something had changed. Ethan took a deep breath, took 2 steps toward her, and for the first time spoke without harshness. "You won't destroy yourself anymore. I'll take care of everything." The runner held its breath. Chloe looked up in surprise. Paula let out a barely audible, "Oh my God." Laura blinked, as if she couldn't fathom her own fate. "What?" she whispered, confused. "Sir, you don't have to. I'll find a way." "No." He shook his head, firmly but gently. "Your way is to stay up all night and fall flat on your face. That's over. I'll cover Liam's treatment, the month's expenses, whatever it takes. Today." Laura's hands trembled. The glass of water rattled. "Why?" The question came out small, suspicious. "You called me weak. You said I was leaving." Ethan closed his eyes for a second, swallowing his pride. "I messed up." The words were heavy, sincere. "I didn't see you, I only saw service. And you," he searched for the right word, "you are courage. I won't pretend to understand everything, but I know when I'm wrong." A tear insisted on escaping from the corner of Laura's eye. She brushed it away with her sleeve, almost embarrassed. "I don't want charity. It's not charity." He bowed his head slightly, lowering his voice. "It's reparation, and it's the right thing to do. Besides," he breathed, "I lost someone to this same disease. I won't watch you lose too." The silence turned to welcome. Maria smiled, moved. Noah nodded, as if to say, "Now, yes." Laura faltered, pride fighting with fear. "I don't even know where to begin to thank you." "Start by saying yes," Ethan replied, almost with a half-smile. "The rest is up to me." "Chloe?" The assistant straightened, her eyes shining. "I'm already writing the hospital authorization. I can also arrange an advance for the family's expenses." Laura brought both hands to her face. Her entire body relaxed, like someone finding ground after a long time floating in the void. "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes." Maria hugged her tightly from the side. "You did it, Nina, you did it." Ethan carefully handed the envelope back to Laura. "This stays with you. From now on, it's not a secret you carry alone. It's a commitment we carry together." Laura nodded, sobbing softly. Thank you. For Liam, for Sophie, for me." Ethan took another steadying breath. "We'll get everything sorted today, and now you can rest. Don't be afraid." She nodded, finally letting the tears fall unabashedly. In the hallway that, minutes before, had been the scene of humiliation, a new sound arose, the soft sound of hope. The day wasn't even over when the first emails started popping up. Extra budgetary authorization, urgent, immediate release of funds, justify. At the bottom, figures high enough to make any director choke on their coffee. Chloe walked into Ethan's office, her face tense. "They've already seen it," he said, lowering his voice. "The council wants a special meeting today." Ethan nodded firmly. "Mark." The boardroom was a sleek aquarium with an oval dark wood table and views of Manhattan. From the outside, everything looked small. Inside, egos loomed large. Mr. Davenport, in a grey suit and steely gaze, opened the meeting by tapping his pen on the table. "Let's get straight to the point." He looked at the papers. "You authorized a 6-figure sum for the treatment of—" He turned the page. "And the brother of a cleaning lady." "From my employee," Ethan corrected calmly. "The company benefits from her work every day." "This is a company, not a nursing home," Mrs. Whitmore snapped, her pearl necklace glinting in the light. "You're going to lose the presidency because of a maid." A murmur ran through the table. Mr. Patel cleared his throat, seeking a compromise. "Blake, no one here is against helping, but there are processes, funds, committees. You skipped them all." Ethan took a deep breath. "I saw someone collapse on my floor. I saw the reason. I did the right thing immediately." Davenport leaned forward. "The right thing is expensive. Donors, partners, and the market are watching our choices. If we open that door, what's the limit?" Ethan stared at him without blinking. "When the door is to save a life, the limit is not closing it." The sentence echoed against the windows. Whitmore shook his head impatiently. "Poetic, but expensive. Our job is to protect the company." Chloe, in the background, held the clipboard, and fear. The silence stretched. Davenport put down the papers and said coldly, "Proposal. Suspend the authorization until the committee reviews it, and, if you insist, we call a vote to remove you from the interim presidency." The words fell like a hammer. Chloe gasped. Ethan didn't move. "Voting to remove me because I helped a 10-year-old boy," he said quietly, "says more about this table than it does about me." "Populism," Whitmore whispered, "and cheap." The door opened before anyone could ask. Noah appeared, hesitant, with Maria behind him, and between them Laura, pale but standing. Chloe stepped forward, alarmed. "Laura, this is for directors only." "I know," she replied firmly, "but it's my name on that sheet of paper, and it's my brother's life on that table. Davenport frowned. Who allowed entry? Ethan raised his hand. Me. She has a right to be heard. For a second, their eyes met. The entire tower against the girl in the blue uniform. Laura exhaled slowly, as if stopping the fall and deciding to stay. I don't understand stocks, she began simply. I understand running between 3 jobs and still running out of milk. I understand sitting in a hospital chair and pretending I'm not afraid, so I don't scare my brother. She looked at Whitmore. I also understand that you don't know me. Whitmore turned away, uncomfortable. Laura continued. Mr. Blake wronged me earlier. He humiliated me. I saw it. Everyone saw it. Still, he listened to me, saw what no one else sees, and decided to act. He didn't ask for publicity. He didn't call the cameras. He just did what I wished someone had done when my parents died, and I had no one to sign a paper for me. The silence vibrated. Patel put down his pen, thoughtful. Davenport leaned back, studying her like a case. I didn't come to ask for a favor, Laura said, her voice firm. I came to propose something. If the problem is opening the door, then create a proper door, a program, a policy, a transparent fund, with criteria, with a ceiling, so that no one has to faint in the hallway to be seen anymore. Chloe stared at Laura, her eyes shining. Noah clenched his jaw proudly. Maria smiled sideways. That's it? And why should the company do that? Davenport shot back. Give me a reason that isn't tears. Because healthy people work better, Laura replied bluntly. Because your name is worth money, and nothing is worth more than respect. Because a scandal is born from a corridor like that, but a brand is born from decisions like that. And because... Her voice broke, but she continued. Because if my 10-year-old brother has the chance to grow up, study and, who knows, work here one day, that's an investment. It's a future. Patel stroked his chin, impressed. A fund with criteria, he murmured. Governance, compensation, annual limit, medical and social evaluation. Whitmore still resisted. And who's financing it? Blake's already opened his wallet, but what about tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll fund it together, Ethan replied, stepping in. Board of directors, employees, partners. And yes, I'll start with a personal donation equivalent to twice the amount authorized today. In exchange, we'll establish a process, a ceiling, and an external audit. This isn't a whim. It's a model. Davenport tapped his pen, thinking until he blurted out, still hasty. I vote for immediate suspension and formal warning. Patel raised his hand. I request 48 hours. Review. He turned to Laura. Bring documentation, medical report, costs, deadlines. And Blake, draft this program. If it's solid, I'll change my vote. I can... Laura replied without hesitation. I have everything in the folder. She looked at Ethan. And thank you for letting me speak. You were the one who opened the door, Ethan said genuinely. Davenport gritted his teeth. 48 hours. Then I vote. Laura breathed as if returning to the surface. The fear was still there. But now it shared space with something new, excitement. She hadn't just defended her brother, she had reshaped the conversation. It was no longer about an exception for a maid. It was about creating a path for anyone who, like her, carried the world and still showed up early for work. As she left, Chloe leaned against the doorframe, whispering, You were brilliant. I only told the truth, Laura replied with a tired smile. In the room's glass, the reflection showed 2 figures side by side, the most powerful man in the company and the previously invisible employee. They weren't identical, not yet. But for the first time, they were walking in the same direction. The next day, the city was still waking up when the 48th floor was already buzzing. The council had hastily scheduled a new meeting. The atmosphere was like that of a courtroom. Files piled high, heavy-lidded eyes, tension dripping like drops on stone. Ethan entered first. There was none of the arrogant gleam as before, but a different, almost serene firmness. Laura, a few steps behind, held the folder containing Liam's medical documents. Chloe followed her, discreet but supportive. Maria and Noah waited in the hallway, silently cheering. Davenport opened the meeting coldly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to decide whether or not Mr. Blake's rash decisions jeopardize the presidency of this company." Whitmore adjusted her pearl necklace and added, "Helping an employee with personal resources is one thing, but using company influence and funds for an isolated incident is a risk." Ethan stood, resting both hands on the table. His voice didn't waver. "If I lose the presidency for doing the right thing, so be it." The sentence fell like a thunderclap. Some directors looked at each other, others frowned. Ethan continued, "This company was built on numbers, and numbers are important, but they don't tell the whole story. What sustains any empire is trust. If we're seen as profit machines that ignore lives, sooner or later we'll collapse." Laura took a deep breath, clutching the folder to her chest. Davenport tried to cut in, "Philosophy doesn't pay the bills, Blake." "But reputation pays," Ethan retorted, "and reputation is capital." He pulled a document from his briefcase and placed it on the table. "Here's my proposal. Blake & Co. Social Fund. The initial half will come from my personal assets." He looked directly at each of them. "The other half will come from the company's profits, subject to external audit, annual cap, and strict medical and social criteria. Total transparency." Patel leaned in, interested. "And who manages it?" "A joint committee," Ethan replied. "Representatives from the board, employees, and independent experts. I want this to be a model. I want us to show the market that we can be profitable and humane at the same time." Laura finally found her voice. "It's not just about me or my brother. It's about everyone who carries the burden and is never seen." She looked at the directors firmly. "If your company chooses to look, it changes everything." The silence that followed wasn't one of rejection, but of shock. Even Whitmore seemed to falter for a moment. Davenport cleared his throat, stiffening. "What if the market doesn't like it?" Ethan gave a half smile. "Then the market learns to like it, because here, at least while I'm here, we won't turn a blind eye to those who support this tower." Patel raised his hand first. "I vote in favor of the proposal." One by one, other directors spoke up. Some hesitated, but the moral weight of the decision had already shifted. Davenport leaned back in his chair, defeated by his own silence. When the meeting ended, Chloe breathed a sigh of relief, Maria cried softly in the hallway, and Noah gave a small fist pump in celebration. Laura, with discreet tears, approached Ethan. "You risked everything," he replied without hesitation. "I didn't risk it. I chose it." And for the first time, it wasn't the arrogant millionaire speaking. It was a man who, in front of everyone, had stood up for someone invisible and turned that into strength. At that moment, Ethan wasn't just the president of a company. He was someone worthy of respect. The next morning, the city woke up to a single topic. Headlines blared across everyone's cell phones. "Billion-dollar company creates fund for employees in crisis. Decision stems from story of young caregiver. President faces council to fund 10-year-old boy's treatment." In elevators, cafes, and the subway, the conversation grew. A few second videos, discreetly recorded in the 48th floor hallway, circulated. Laura holding her briefcase, her voice firm, Ethan taking the blame and proposing the fund. Comments flooded the social media. Finally, someone with power doing the right thing. "This is what America needs: courage and public policy within corporations." "Stay strong, Liam." In the mirrored building, the lobby became a small, silent auditorium. Staff members who never looked at each other began to exchange shy nods. At the counter, Megan smiled at Laura as if to say, "I'm with you." Maria gave her a latte and a tight hug. Noah, leaning against the wall, watched everything with quiet pride. Upstairs, the boardroom felt like a cocoon about to crack. Davenport answered the phone, his brow furrowed. Another call. Another. He breathed heavily and glanced at the other directors. "Well, the press won't let go," he grumbled, "and the partners want statements." Whitmore smoothed her pearls uncomfortably. "They're praising the fund. They say the company's image has risen more in one day than in a quarter of announcements." Patel placed a report on the table. "And the market? Look, stocks opened higher. A clear sign of confidence. People like it when a company has a pulse and a purpose." Davenport paused for a long moment, then admitted the inevitable, "We won't push him away." Then, dryly, "On the contrary, we will support the immediate implementation of the fund, with governance as proposed." Meanwhile, on the 48th floor, Chloe ran to the breakfast nook, where Laura sat breathing slowly, her eyes torn between fear and hope. "I have news," she said breathlessly. "Good or bad?" "The best," Chloe smiled. "The board backed down. The fund is going to be born. And Ethan is still president." Laura clapped her hand over her mouth in disbelief. "Really? Really?" "End of story." Chloe wiped the corner of her eye. "And there's more. They want you to join the committee as an employee representative." Laura's heart pounded. "Me?" "You," Chloe confirmed. "Because it was your courage that opened that door." Before she could answer, Laura's phone vibrated. "St. Mary's Hospital." Her hands shook. She answered, "Hello?" The doctor's voice brought a warm glow into the room. "Laura, this is Dr. Collins. Payment for the first phase of treatment has been processed. Liam starts this afternoon." Laura's legs went weak. Today, and with a modern protocol, the same one used by the best clinics. "Thank you, doctor, thank you." Maria, who was listening from the door, celebrated in a whisper. "Thank God." The elevator opened. Ethan appeared, without the usual ice shield on his face. He stopped in front of Laura, respecting her space. "May I?" She nodded, still holding the phone. "The council backed down," he said simply, "and Liam's treatment is guaranteed." "I just spoke to the doctor," Laura replied, her voice breaking. "He starts today." Ethan took a deep breath, as if releasing a weight. "Thank you for forcing me to see what I couldn't see." Noah arrived and patted Ethan on the shoulder, half joking, half acknowledging. "President, now you really look like a boss." Ethan smirked. "I'm trying to learn quickly." Across the floor, some employees who had laughed the day before approached, embarrassed. Paula gathered her courage. "Laura, I'm sorry for judging. I didn't know. It's okay," she said sincerely. "Now you know." Chloe held up a folder with the new seal printed on it. Blake & Co. Fund. Life first. "It's official," she announced. "Committee formed. Schedule ready." "Full transparency." Patel appeared beside Ethan, greeting them both. "You two made an example of a scandal." He looked at Laura. "We need you at the first committee meeting. Bring your practical head." "I bring my heart too," she replied, smiling. "Both," he agreed. In the lobby, a reporter waited for permission to go up. When the communications team gave the all-clear, the camera turned on. "Mr. Blake, one word. Why risk the presidency for someone you didn't even know?" Ethan didn't blink. "Because leadership is choosing the right thing when it's expensive, and because Laura reminded me of what work is all about. People. Laura, do you feel valued today?" She held the microphone for a second and spoke clearly. "Today I'm not just the cleaning lady. I'm a sister, an employee, a voice, and my brother will live. That's worth everything." The team clapped softly. The video was uploaded within minutes and exploded with comments. At the hospital, Liam watched it on a small TV in the oncology hallway. He raised his fist, thin but firm. "Go, sis," he said proudly, before being led into his first session. Back on the 48th floor, Ethan extended his hand to Laura, not as a boss, but as someone who finally respects those who work alongside him. "Shall we move on?" Laura shook his hand. "Let's go." The corridor that had been the scene of humiliation now seemed larger, brighter. The tower remained tall, true, but for the first time, an open door stood open, and outside, a chorus of voices said the same thing. It is possible to win with dignity. Get to work, everyone, Chloe announced lightly, like someone breathing after a storm. Get to work, Laura repeated, with a new smile. And in that moment, good one, not with shouting but with choices. The calendar moved forward, and so did life. Months later, the scene was different. At St. Mary's Hospital, Liam ran through the halls with a toy car, his cheeks flushed, his hair growing back after chemotherapy. With each laugh, it seemed as if time was giving back to the Addams family everything it had stolen. Laura was there, holding his school bag. Slow down, champ, or you'll knock the nurse over, she said, laughing. I'm fast because I'm strong, he replied, showing off his arm like a superhero. Laura couldn't hold back the tears. That's right, my love, stronger than ever. Outside the hospital, a new sign stood out. Blake & Co. Hope Program, support for working families. People came in to receive assistance, scholarships, and medical appointments. The social fund had become a movement. Partner companies joined, and the press called it a model of corporate humanity. At the company's headquarters, the atmosphere had also changed. The hallway, that had once been a scene of humiliation, now featured a mural with photos of employees and their families, with the phrase, "No one is invisible here." Laura no longer wore the blue uniform. Now she wore a formal skirt and a silver name tag. She had been promoted to administrative assistant of the social committee, a position created to give a voice to those at the grassroots. When she passed by, she was no longer looked down upon, but greeted with respect. "Good morning, Laura." Megan smiled sincerely. "Good morning," she replied, full of energy. "You have a meeting with Mr. Blake at 10. I know." Laura laughed. This time, not as a cleaning lady rushing to avoid leaving any dust, but as part of the team. In the spacious room, Ethan waited for her. The man who had once worn arrogance like a second skin now seemed softer. He was still demanding, but not cold. Seeing her enter, he stood, "Assistant Addams," he greeted with a small smile. "Mr. Blake," she replied, playing with his formal tone. "What's on today's agenda?" He pointed to a graph on the screen. "We're expanding the program. We've already helped 50 families. We want to reach 100 by the end of the year, and I want you to lead part of that operation." Laura's eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes, you." Ethan crossed his arms. "Because no one understands what's at stake better than you." She took a deep breath, overcome with emotion. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "I know you are," he assured her. "Because you've already proven that you can transform pain into strength." Laura smiled, remembering it all. The fainting, the dropped envelope, the tears, the struggle. And now, there, she was recognized not for her weakness, but for her courage. On her way out, she ran into Noah in the hallway. "Look who's become the boss," he joked. "Not so much," she laughed, "but I don't have to beg to stay anymore. Now, they're asking me to lead." "That's a victory, Laura," Noah said proudly. That day, when Liam returned home, he ran to hug her, smiling. Sophie showed him a drawing of her sister wearing a name tag and a big smile, with the childish caption, "My hero." Laura hugged them both, tears falling into the silence of the simple kitchen. "We did it," she said, clutching them to her chest. "We won." Across the city, from his penthouse window, Ethan watched the sun set over New York. For the first time, he didn't just feel rich, he felt useful. What began with a fainting spell in a hallway had become much more, a movement of humanity within an empire of glass and steel. And every smile from Liam, every look of hope, was living proof that good can win and transform destinies forever.